Welcome, everybody, to the Indie Game Lunch Hour. Today we're talking with Kelly Baptista about career changes and finding mentors in the game industry.
The Indie Game Lunch Hour.
Our live magical podcast, we give game developers the chance to hear stories of breaking in from industry experts, as well as directly ask them questions about their areas of expertise in the second half of each episode. This is an unedited recording of a weekly event we host on our Discord on Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, so feel free to swing by and join us for the next one. I'm your host, Willem Delventhal, headmaster of the Indie Game Academy and the Wizard of Joy! And joining me today is Kelly Baptista. Kelly happened to come take one of our classes a good time ago, and we've sort of politely talked and connected here and there ever since. And it's so wonderful to finally get Kelly on the show. Kelly is a game designer in the industry who has worked here for a number of years now at companies like Niantic and Valkyrie Entertainment. And Kelly would like to speak about career changes, which is such a big topic for many of our audience members, and then also finding mentors, so important. Kelly, welcome. What are you having for lunch today?
So I feel like you probably get this answer a lot, but it's 9 a.m. here, so I'm having coffee. And it's
Yes,
breakfast, so.
indeed. We do get that answer. It's kind of funny because I'm over on the East Coast. I'm in Georgia natively, and then most of our industry is over on the West Coast. So I feel like literally, statistically, the answer is usually I'm not eating lunch.
Fair enough.
It's fine though. It's fine. We'll edit it in post. We'll have you say something. Just kidding.
A sandwich. There we go.
Yes, indeed. Well, welcome, Kelly. It's awesome to finally get you on the show. We haven't had a real chance to sit down and chat about your career and some of your insights, so I'm very excited to do so. Why don't you start, as always, with our age-old, most important question. Tell us your origin story, Kelly. Tell us how you broke into the game industry and how you got to where you are today.
So I feel like it's more common these days for it to be like a weird career path. And I don't remember if we talked about this before, but I feel like I was a victim, if you will, of the go to college for something you love and you'll never work a day in your life spiel for millennials. So
Wait,
I
that's
picked
not
art.
true?
Well, I don't know what you went to college for, so maybe it's true for some people, but it wasn't true for me. I found out art was my hobby, not a career. Although I found myself somewhere creative anyways. So I'm gonna go back kind of far just for fun.
Please.
And it kind of helps, I don't know, everyone who's listening understand like how I kind of made the connections and got into what I'm doing now. So my high school and college job for like 9 years was working at a Six Flags in California.
Basically game
in
development.
Yeah, exactly. So that was in the entertainment department, and I was very close friends with Bugs Bunny, if you will. So that was a fun time, and it basically got me started in like the experience building part of like the passion, the love for like what I was doing because I worked there for so long, partially because I never wanted to do retail. So from there, I made it up into like a managerial position, ended college, and I was like, all right, art, here we come. And then uh, that was harder than I thought. So it turned out I was like an
Dang.
art hobbyist and I was more of a doodler. And so I did have one of my college professors tell me that I was a lazy artist towards the
Oh
end.
my
And I was
god.
like, what does that mean? And she was like, well,
Wait,
you're
is that one of those
natural.
like compliment things? Yeah.
No,
Eh.
yeah, sort of. It was like she was basically like, you're naturally good at art, so you don't try. And everyone
Hmm.
else is like really trying, so you're here, but people are gonna catch up, and then you're never gonna be as good if you don't practice. So I was like, well, is that like even for me? I don't know. So um, yeah, so I was like, oh my gosh, what do I even do with this? It was kind of like a weird fumbly thing where I had like a couple art jobs and was like, oh, no, I can't do this. And so I thought back, like, what did I love about working at Six Flags? Like, why did I work there for so long? And it was the experience building. And so at that point, I had moved to Washington State, which is where I am now, which is why it's like dark and bright because I have a lamp pointed at me because it's raining. So, yeah, so I ended up working at Pacific Science Center, which is a museum up here. It's kind of like for anyone who's in the Bay Area, it's like the Academy of Sciences, but like a little less fancy. I don't know, but it was a wonderful place to work. I did a special exhibit coordination, and so similar to Six Flags, it was kind of that like bring guests in, give them this experience in a physical space, and like
Hmm.
make a positive memory for them, and just kind of like build that. And so, excuse me. Yeah, so I was like, okay, cool, and that was a contract position. So I ended up having to look for something else. And like the side note for all of this is like because I was such a hard worker and like always put everything, like gave everything my all in what I did, I ended up with a lot of people who were always looking out for me. And so I'll go into this later, but like mentorship for me has always been more of an organic experience. I never sought out anyone to be like, "Hey, you know stuff. Can you mentor me?" Because I'm not sure that always works out.
Mhm.
And like definitely I'll hear from anyone who has a different opinion on that, and I'd be glad to hear it. But for me, it's always been more of an organic thing. So fast forward, I was looking for another role because my contract was ending, and I saw a facilities coordinator, so like office manager at Niantic, and I was like, "Oh, Pokemon Go, like that's pretty cool." Like I could, I remember applying to it in
Such
we
an
were like,
understatement. I'm sorry. It's
well,
pretty cool.
so this was like,
Genre defining.
I think, yeah, right. It was like a year
Cultural
maybe,
setting.
yeah, after they had
Foundationally
launched,
changing the human race. Anyway,
right.
sorry.
So, I don't know if anyone recalls, but, like, it was very like, they were very, like, hush hush, like, no one knew, like, it was, like, a secret, like, "How did they do this?" Like, a whole thing. And so I was it was, like, on Indeed, so it wasn't even, like, on their website,
Weird.
anything, yeah, and I remember, like, sitting in this dark hallway, like, with my coworker at the time, like, putting these, you know those, like, audio things you listen to in museums? We were, like, shipping them back to where we got them. And I was like, "Hey, should I apply to this?" And she was like, "Oh yeah, like Pokemon Go is so cool, blah blah." And I was like, "Well, I've never like done this job, this type of job, but like all my experience like makes sense." And so I ended up interviewing there and got the position. And then one of my like close coworkers always likes to remind me, he was like, "It was between you and someone else." And I'm like, "Oh, don't rub it in. I obviously I'm way better than that." So, yeah, so that was like a whole weird thing, just because like I got there and I was like, "Oh, there's only like 30 people in this office. Like, what is happening?" I thought it was like this huge company, like Pokemon Go is like a global sensation. And I got there and I was like, "This guy's in his socks. Like, what's happening?" And I have to mention that because he was on the panel with me at PAX, and I like always give him a hard time about that because he was like the director of QA, but he was answering the door in his socks for the interview candidate. And I was like, "What is going on here?" That's
Come to the
games
game
for
industry.
you. So
Yeah.
yeah. I was very overdressed for my interview, but I quickly learned that I didn't have to look fancy at my job. But yeah, so I got the job as a office manager, which eventually changed to like workplace experience. Socks the new business casual. I like it. Uh, so yeah, workplace experience manager, and like I always want to give like the very clear note that like I did not get that job as like a foot in the door, right? Like I know a lot of people, and I had interviewed folks like for like receptionist help when I worked there, like, and they're like, "Yeah, I want to be an engineer, but like I'm just here to like, you know, get my foot in the door." And I was
Which
like,
everybody knows is also how you become the best possible candidate for that kind of role. That is
right.
like
I was like,
exactly what
"Oh."
you want to hear.
Yeah, so I feel like, I mean, obviously I didn't say that because I was like, "Yeah, workplace experience. Very cool." And I had a great time doing it. Like I love that job. I still would do that job again. It was super cool, but like similarly to all my other positions, I ended up with a lot of people looking out for me. My I had a lot of managers, honestly, but one of my like later ones was like, "Do you want to be a workplace experience manager forever? Like, what's your career goal?" And I was like, I don't know. Like, I love working here. Like, this is great." And so she was like, "Why don't you like take a look and like talk to some other folks around the company? Like, we have so many amazing people who are super talented here. Uh, why don't you talk to them and like I don't know, maybe everyone knows, I don't assume anymore, but so Niantic spun out of Google in like 2015. So they had like a lot of Google-esque types of things, and it wasn't ever uh like a written rule, but my manager at the time was like, "You know how Google does 20% projects?" She was like, "You could do that, and like why don't you talk to some folks and see like if there's anything you're interested in doing on the side?" Because like, and I want to be clear, it's because like I was doing my normal job, like be good,
Good.
so like she wasn't like, "Oh my God, don't like get rid of your other job." But it was really cool to have somebody support that, who like she would lose me on her team, right? Like that's that's kind of wild to think about. So anyways, I talked to a couple people. I talked to one of our producers, and then our like external development head about like project management type stuff. And because I was kind of trying to like take my experience and like make it relevant. So anyways, I'll like wrap this up. I feel like I've been blabbering on
This is a good
forever.
story, though. Yeah.
But anyways, so I ended up talking to like I won't name drop, that's weird. Anyways, our ex like lead Pokemon Go
Uh-huh.
designer, and she was in the Bellevue office with me, and she was like, "Yeah, like you want to give this a shot? Like let me give you some stuff to do, and we'll see if like that's a thing that you're interested in." And so like wrote some GDDs, like did some like random stuff on the side, and like it goes like she reprimanded me slightly for this during the PAX talk, but she was like, "You did the work." And I was like, "You're right, I did do the work. It wasn't just like, hey, I'm here to be a game designer." It was like I worked very hard on the side of my like actual job to like get this
Mm.
done and like learn the ropes. And like I think when we met, it was at the point where I had already become an associate designer, but one of our animators was like, "Hey, there's this class on Eventbrite. Like, should we go to it?" And she ended up not making it, and
Ugh.
I went, and I was like, I think I was like the only person in the class who was like laughing at the jokes and being. I think I made like a spaghetti meatball
No,
Flappy Bird.
everybody was
I
laughing,
don't know.
Kelly. I think you forget
Oh,
exactly how
sorry.
that went. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so anyways, I ended up there, and then the like TLDR of the rest of that story is that like I did it for like about a year, and then layoffs happened and I was sad, and then I work at Valkyrie now.
Nice. I love just wrapping it up with a little bow there at the end.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
well, that's incredible. I mean, one of the reasons I was excited to have you on the show is because this story exactly is one that I think is going to mean a lot to a lot of people. And there are a lot of I've been taking little notes on things that I want to call out from your story, and I now have 4 notes, which means it's been a good one.
Oh, okay.
I
Cool.
think absolutely. I think there is a lot to call out. I think that the first point that sort of stuck with me is you made this statement: mentors are casual, and I just want to echo that. I think the best mentor-mentee relationships, at least in my own experience, are ones that kind of just build over time. Like it's
Yeah.
not like you went looking and you like Googled LinkedIn, who are the best mentors, and then you like cold called all of them, and that could work. But ultimately, I think it's a little bit more casual. It's just like you start a relationship with that person, and over time, it sort of builds into a mentorship as opposed to seeking that right up front. My one of my favorite business mentors of all time, I met on a plane one time, and we talked about like Samsung for 5 hours or something. It was great. Um, The next one I want to bring up, because I think it's an important one, is breaking in as a non-role, as not the one you were originally aiming for. In your case, you were aiming for the role you broke in at, and I think that's an important distinction. You made the point that you interview people who are like, "Oh yeah, this is just a role that I'm trying to break in with." And I want to point out to listeners how immediately weak that sounds as a candidate. Like, why would you hire that person if they're only there for this to be a stepping stone? And I totally get it. Many of you are going to be applying in cases like that. But remember that, like, you know, Kelly did everything well. Whatever role Kelly was in, they nailed, and that's part of what helped them find a mentor to transition. And then the 20% projects, I just wanted to say for a moment how wonderful it is that if anybody's running their own indie studio, like, give a little bit of time. We used to do that at Lumosity. We'd give like 2 Thursdays a month to 20% projects, and it was the best. If nothing else for morale, but also you get cool projects out of it. Yeah, yeah. So our topic for the episode is career transitioning, which I think we've now had a really nice intro to, as well as finding mentors. I would love to hear, let's give both of those a little bit of time, a little bit of love. So for career transitioning, give us your 101. What are the most important things you want to say to the audience for those who are trying to career transition?
So I think like you mentioned it, doing your job well, because like
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter if you're not doing your dream job, people are still gonna see that work ethic. And so if you can't do like, you know, whatever other thing, it might like I don't want to say order the office supplies like it's not an important task, right? Because it is. Like, and if you're going to shirk your duties on that, like, how can anyone trust you to do the job that you really want, right? So, um, yeah, so just being able to do that. And like, I think I'm going to quote my mom because I was like, why do I have to go to college? Like, this is so dumb. Um, she was like, well, it's to show that you can, stick with something for 4 years and get, you know, like even if you're not going to use that, because like when I went to college, I learned how to make a Flash website, right? Like, what am
Yes.
I doing with the Flash website right now? Nobody knows. Uh,
Rest in peace, Flash.
right. So, yeah, so like none of that is really relevant for the industry today, right? But like I went to college, I have a degree, and like I can't really say that like these days, like a college degree is like the be all end all. But,
Yeah.
like showing that you can do something. Like you can't show up like the candidate and be like, well, I'm just here because like I want to know how to get in here without
Can
like
you please
doing.
pay me, and then can you please make me a game designer in like
Right.
6 months? Is that good?
Yeah, exactly. So like people are gonna see that. So the
Yeah.
drive, the work ethic, like, are
Mm.
you doing 110%? Like, show you can do it. And like,
Yeah.
because if you're gonna transition, like, uh, you're gonna have to do extra, basically,
Yeah.
is what I'm getting at there. So I halfway noticed I was like, oh my God, I'm saying like so many times, and then I threw myself off. So,
No, Kelly, it makes you relatable. Now I feel like, you're an everyman's hero, right?
oh yeah, and I'm gonna
Yeah.
put that on my LinkedIn profile, an everyman's hero.
You heard it here first. Love it. Yeah, I think once again, there's a bunch of good notes there for people who are transitioning. I want to first call up just for a second. Like, it's okay for you to career transition, and I don't want it to be. I don't want to suggest that like when you get in an interview, you gotta lie and hide the fact that you're transitioning. But there's just a really big like mentality difference between the person who's there and ready to give that 110% you're talking about, and the person who's like, this is literally just a stepping stone for me. Personal anecdote, when I was at Lumosity, the way I got in there was as an internship, and there were, I think it was 4 or 5 interns all at the same time, and I was one of them. And there were 2 or 3 of them who were from MIT. And those people, I will not name names either. They were extremely ungrateful for the internship. I'll just say that. To them, they're coming from MIT. I think that builds a certain level of confidence. And at the time, Lumosity wasn't quite as well known as it became during its peak after a couple of years of me working there. And so they really just like, to them, this was like sort of a box they had to check off. Versus me and the other intern that I worked really close with, This was our first chance in games, our first time in tech, our first time being paid well, and they really paid the interns well. And we were just like so grateful and humble and hungry. And you can guess, who got hired after that. It's like a really simple mindset. You are, whatever you do 110%. And I think working too hard is a whole toxic culture we're kind of all dealing with right now. But at the same time, um, you have to make sure that I think what you said about trust building is maybe what I'm aiming at here. You have to make sure that you are showing that people can trust you and that you'll get done what you say you're going to get done. And I love, by the way, the mindset of like, I went to school to prove that I can do that, that I can put in the energy and that people can see that I put in that consistency. I love those as all beginnings to this. So then let's talk about mentors for a bit now. So finding mentors, you've already given us this first tip of, mentors are casual. I'd love, though, once again, sort of the 101. Let's do a second lecture today. What is the 101 on finding and building relationships with mentors?
I think so. Like, for me, I realized I had mentors after the fact.
I
So,
think I get what
like,
you mean. Yeah.
yeah, I never was like, hey, this person knows so much. Like, I should ask them if they want to mentor me. Like, it ended up more of like an admiration for like the job they were doing. So the very first person that was my manager at Niantic, uh, and I feel like I struggle because I want to be like, this is her name, she's so cool, but I feel like that's kind of weird. So I still
I'm in
talk to
favor of
her.
name dropping. It's
Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm like one of those like weird like privacy people, so I'm like,
yeah.
what if I didn't ask them if I could say their name? Like, should I
That's fair.
say it?
That's fair.
Are they gonna get doxxed? Like nobody knows. Uh, so, anyways, she was my first manager, and like I told her this later, but for the longest time, she was in San Francisco and I was in Seattle, and so like I never met her in person, and so for the longest time I was like I thought she like hated me. And I was like, "Oh my god, this is like she's so talented, but also does she even like me? I'm not sure." Turns out she did, and she thought I was great. She still thinks I'm great. I think she's great. Um, but she like had worked with Niantic since before they spun out of Google, so she had done it all, and she was organized. And I don't is she had her shit together? I don't know if this was like a PG, but like that's so it was awesome, and she, like, did all this stuff, and I was so sure at one point, I was like, "Man, if she disappeared off the face of the earth, like, how would this company even keep going?" Because she just, like, had all of this knowledge, and it was so impressive to me because I think she's only a couple years older than I am, and I was like, "Man, like, if I had had my career life together before, like, maybe I could be this." But I just like worked as hard as I could because I wanted to impress her and I didn't know if she liked me. So I was like, I can't be disappointing. Um, and so she ended up like trusting me with stuff that like I'm not sure she would have trusted anybody else with. And like I just like wanted to keep like making her proud of me. And so I just like kept being like, yeah, like whatever you need, like I could do it. And like I don't wanna condone being, like, a yes man, but, through when I was working at Niantic, I think I did struggle a lot with being like, "Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, whatever you need, I got it." Like, and yeah, it can help, but also, like, please keep in mind your mental health when that's happening because you don't wanna be the person crying in the bathroom. Uh, so yeah, so I was like, "Yeah, anything. Like, you want me to, like, come in at 6 a.m. to receive some chairs? I got it. Like, no big deal." And I think it was only later when, like, she was never like, "Yeah, I'm your mentor." And I was never like, "Yes, please teach me everything you know." It just, like, happened organically, and it was
Mhm.
very much like that for every other manager I had. And, like, not to say like, they don't have to be your manager, obviously. Like, a lot of these people were just, like, manager adjacent. But it was I always admired like a lot. There's so many talented people at Niantic, and now at Valkyrie, obviously. But I just like whoever I admired, like I just like took it upon myself to learn from them. And
Yeah.
if they needed something, I was like, yeah, let me help you with that. Uh, even if it wasn't necessarily in my job description, but like going back to making sure you get your regular job done, I think you can take those liberties to kind of like help other people out. And that was like a long-winded answer to being like, how does a mentor happen? But it also kind of ties in to the assignment that I thought of for everybody. So
We'll
more
get
on
to
that
that in a
later.
moment.
Yeah.
Yes, amazing. I mean, I think that these are great tips. It's a I feel like part of what you're saying that is important for the audience to hear is like mentors are you can have many mentors, and
Yeah.
as with everything we're discovering these days, right? It's all a spectrum. Like all the way on one end is I mean I don't even know like a mentor you're working with constantly every day or something. But all the way on the other end is just like a coworker or a friend or somebody on the internet making a YouTube video that can
Right.
teach you. And I think like a mentor relationship implies something very hard and like specific, but I think uh, part of what I feel like you're getting at is just everybody has something to teach you, and it's all about building a relationship with
Yeah.
people. Um, and not even necessarily seeking an air quotes mentorship,
Yes.
but allowing it to sort of foster wherever it happens to foster.
Yeah.
If you've got a big
Exactly.
field, you're just tilling the field. You're doing your job, you're doing it to the best of your ability, and also you're experimenting here and there with other things and seeing what grows, and then following what grows.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be like Facebook official, right? You don't
Right.
have to go up to somebody and be like, "Will you be my mentor?" You could
Although I
just,
am going to do that next time now. That's brilliant.
well,
Will
you
you be my
could. I
Facebook
think they
official
might be like,
mentor?
"Oh God, what does this guy want from me?" Yeah. I don't know. So
That's funny.
yeah, it doesn't have to be like an official thing. It can just like
Yeah.
stem and you can be like, "Hey, all right, yeah, like here we are,
Nice. Yeah, I
mentoring."
think. Yeah, I think so. There's a Tony Robbins is somebody I'll bring up now and then. He's a very um, he's a difficult person to fully get behind these days, maybe. But he has some good stuff to say, and interestingly, he will talk about mentorships, and he will tell you to go find the absolute smartest person you can, and be like, whoever is the expert in the thing that you want to go find, that you want to go do, that you need mentorship in, go to that person. Don't do any half measures. He has a very extreme mindset about it. So give me the opposite of that, because it doesn't sound like that's what you did. It sounds like in some ways that kind of happened. Um, but uh, tell me how you would respond to somebody who says you have to go find the smartest person you possibly can and then make them your mentor.
Um, I mean, I guess I kind of did that, but not like thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was just somebody. My manager was somebody I admired, and I was like, "Well, I hope I could be like them when I grow up," even though I'm like 30 something. So, like, I guess it's kind of the same, just in a less aggressive way. I don't know. Does that make sense?
I think
Maybe
so.
not.
Yeah. Well, okay. Here, how about this? This I think is an important question, and we'll get to community questions in a moment. So for those who, it's all well and good to say, well, it has to happen naturally, but and I think the best mentors do. That said, not all of us work at Niantic or have worked at Niantic.
Fair
So
enough.
what is your tips or recommendations or thoughts at least on somebody who feels like they need a mentor but doesn't necessarily have a community that covers one?
Uh, I mean, it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a manager. I have um so one of my previous coworkers, at the science center.
Oh.
At one point, I was like, man, maybe she should be in charge of me. But like she had a very different perspective on like leadership and experience, like creation for the museum. And so like it doesn't have to be somebody above you, right? Like it could just
Hmm.
be a person you admire and like that you trust their opinion. And so a lot of the time it was very interesting because she had been in the military for a long time, and so she took like a very different approach to like people management than I had. And so like, I guess you wouldn't call her like an exact mentor, but like, I always was like, hey, like I can trust you with uh, this question, like even though like the power dynamic is backwards, but like yeah, it could just be somebody you work with closely. It could be a friend. It could be your mom. I think like I mean, if you have a good relationship with your parents, obviously, like not everybody has that. It could be a family member, chosen family. But yeah, I don't know. It could be anybody. Like I just think like there's tons of smart people to be admired in the world, and just like look at them and think like how can I learn what they've got?
Mhm.
So,
Nice. And I feel like part of your message is also how can I reciprocate almost.
mm,
Something that I've said before that I think is true is what largely what a mentor gets out of a mentee relationship is just watching that mentee kick ass actually. Like that's satisfying and fun, and it makes you feel like you're passing something on. We all want to be part of a journey of somebody who kicks butt. Um, so I think like part of what I'm hearing from you is that you've also always been a very reciprocal mentee. Sounds like probably you're very grateful, but also you kick butt. You listen to what they say. Um,
yes.
yeah, and I'm sure not blindly, but you put in the work and you make sure that you are upskilling and learning and growing. Um, and that I think is what a good mentor wants to see, whether consciously or subconsciously.
Yeah. Just trying to make folks proud out here.
Yeah, that's it. My main driver all the time. Okay, I think we've had a bunch of really wonderful questions here, but let's get to the community questions. Make sure we have some time. I think I actually want to start with a fun question because I think it's it's just cute. So Gwen, are you there? Do you want to ask your question? Okay, great. Go ahead, Gwen. You're currently muted. Gwen, paging Gwen. I'm going to ask your question in about 3.5 seconds for you. All right. Gwen asks, not a mentor related question, but what's the funnest thing that happened to you while you were at the Science Center?
The funnest?
Yes.
Oh my
Just give us a good
gosh.
story, maybe. Okay, you got one?
Oh, yeah, I do. So we ended up having to sell those like the things I talked about earlier, like the audio like tour devices. And we had like this cart that had the cash register on it, and we had to wheel it out every morning on this like rocky terrazzo kind of like thing. And so usually it was one of the like front gate folks that came over to do it because none of us had like cashier training, I guess. And like fun fact about me, I've never operated a cash register before, and I'm gonna like keep doing that for the rest of my life because yikes. So anyways, we like opened these like double doors, and the person who was supposed to be the cashier for this thing like sees this like cart on this crate that's got like crazy caster wheels, like who knows where it came from. I think it was like custom built, and it's like wobbling, and he takes one look at it and he goes, what fresh hell is this? And like all of us just lost it, and like probably you had to be there, but that was like the thing that popped up immediately because like you know it's called a POS for a reason, like point of sale, but like, whatever. Also, I'm not going to
Multiple
swear
uses of
anymore
the
on
same,
this.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Multiple
So,
definitions.
yeah.
I love that. I think, something else I want to pull out of your story in general is also like learning the applicable lessons no matter what you're doing. You've talked a lot about, putting in 110%, whatever your role is, whatever you're focusing on. And I think another part to that story is also like, um, learning applicable lessons for whatever is next. This time at the Science Center was applicable lessons for game design ultimately. And you might not like think that upon initial inspection, but it's totally true. Um, a quote that I bring up like way too often, but I don't care because I love it. George the Fat Man Sanger, who's a sort of infamous audio guy from the origin of games. Actually, he came on our podcast a couple months ago. Great episode if you want to go look it up. and he had this saying where he said, "Find the U-shaped hole in the universe." That I think is like so awesome. And part of the Kelly-shaped hole is your time at the Science Center and the rest of your experience, and that right there is a unique hole that only Kelly could fill, and that's true for all
Yep.
of you too.
It's like the Junji Ito story, which is like a way creepier version of that. So,
Oh God. Maybe we'll talk about that another time. Let's get so Rick is on the stage now. Rick, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, this is a really interesting topic. So you've experienced and witnessed several mentors in action. I'm curious, as we go on with our careers and develop more experience, eventually we ourselves will be the more experienced person in the room. So what are the skills and behaviors that we can develop so that when the time comes, we can be in a position to be the best mentor possible for those around us?
ooh. So I definitely have less experience being in that position. Um, well, in
I mean, you're
games for
here
sure.
like
But
right
like
now.
yeah. So but like when I worked at Six Flags in the Science Center, that was like more my thing, right? And I feel like I was good at people management, but I ultimately like I don't think I would do it again. But so just like being able to find people's like individual strengths. And so I guess that goes back to the U-shaped hole, like helping somebody find that U-shaped hole, right? It's like maybe they don't understand like how, like in my case, uh like I ended up putting those uh experiences together, right? Where I was like, hey, that makes sense. Like I'm working at Niantic uh physical space and the like AR and augmented reality, like those go together. But not everyone can do that, right? So like helping somebody discover their strengths is I think really important, and I don't think that's something that comes naturally to everybody. So like maybe like sitting down and like thinking about the people and like being like, oh, well, like James, and I don't know who James is. Like James is really good at like socializing with people, even though he like claims to hate it. Like, uh, but it's just a skill, and being able to recognize that people have those different skills and then helping them build upon those is something I think that like would be good to kind of think about before you get to that spot.
Hmm.
Cool. So that sounds like maybe just pay special attention to the people who are in your vicinity and really think about who they are and what their goals are.
Mhm.
Yeah. And like, of course, like if they're the person that's, you're like, oh my gosh, like, are they under leveled for their job? Like, how do I help them, get to the next step?
Mm.
Um, I think like looking out for the folks who are kind of like going above and beyond, without like if their work life balance is garbage, like talk to them about that too. But like yeah, giving like anyone who's giving that extra little bit, like I think recognizing that and uh my one of my supervisors at the science center, excuse me, we always like did a positive sandwich, which seems like very weird, and it takes skill to kind of like do it without sounding like it is a positive sandwich. But like you start with something like, hey, I noticed you've been doing like XYZ, that's awesome, but like you could when you're doing that, like this is like kind of missing the mark a little bit, but blah blah, and then you end it on a positive note as well. So like being able to give feedback constructively is something you should definitely like be pretty good at if you're going to like assume that mentor role.
Hmm. It sounds interestingly, a lot of what you're talking about, I think, is echoed by a good management relationship as well. Your role as a mentor is to unblock your mentees, to get them,
Yes.
whatever is stopping them. Maybe it's a toxic work life balance. Maybe it's the opposite. Helping them sort of see and discover that, and then unblock them, allow them to move past it.
Yes. And I appreciate your summarization of my long-winded answers.
That's an important part of this role. Rick, I would love to have you ask your sort of flip side question because I think that's a great follow up.
Yeah, so we're all going to find ourselves in a position where we have mentors. What does it take to be a good mentee? What's the approach you should take?
Ooh. Uh that's interesting because I feel like I just like do it. um
Well,
but
okay. Just kidding.
so um like I kind of think about it like usually when I get like a performance review, I take notes. And so like I don't know, you can see like even before this, I was like, oh my God, I better make sure I like have all my weird talking points down so I don't talk too much, and then did it anyways. But so um like being able to take like any like more negative feedback, I think is really important. And not get defensive, right? Because I think it's like very, I don't know, just like it's what we do, right? When somebody's like, "Oh, you're not good at this," you're like, "Well, this is why." Sometimes it doesn't matter why you're not good at something. You just gotta get better at it. And so, um, being able to take that and then do something with it, I think is really important. And because like if you can't fix, the things that are gonna help you improve, like that's bad mentality. I'm
It,
gonna
it
not
sounds like
combine that word again.
it sounds like it's that the cup is already full mentality. Like,
Yeah,
how can
I
the
guess
master
so.
fill the cup that's already full if you already know better?
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. I'm going to have somebody else ask a question before I have you ask your next one, Rick. But before then, I think. Oh, wow. That means it's time for the question of the day, where we reiterate one of the most important things we learned from Kelly to make sure we remember it and just enjoy ourselves. So, first person to type in the chat gets a house cup point. The answer to just make games is Rick. Thank you. Thank you. Not the answer. Give us two of Kelly's top tips on career transitioning / finding a mentor. I have three that I've written down. I may count yours. Just do it, says Daisy. I don't know if that's quite what Kelly said. We're gonna keep listening. For anybody who is listening, speak them out loud for us. Find a mentor by getting adopted by a kind person. Work harder than anyone else. I'm gonna give it to 9. 9. Let us know which house you want to give the house cut point to. That's pretty much on the dot. As far as I heard from you, Kelly, I feel like 3 really important tips we can take away are: 1, just do your job well, whatever that job is. 2, give 110%. So you talked a lot about that 20% time, like finding time to career transition, especially within wherever you're already working or whatever professional experience you already have, and then building trust. So getting somebody to feel like they should put their mentor time into you, I think, is in large part just building trust with that person.
Yes.
Nice. Those all sound right?
Sounds good. Yeah.
Nice.
I was
All right.
like, oh, would I even get this answer right? But I knew you were taking notes, so I was like, Willem's got
Cool.
this.
Yeah. All right. We've got Mike on the stage now. Mike, do you want to ask your question?
Howdy, sure do. So I'm kind of in the same boat as far as trying to swap industries into gaming. And I've had some opportunities for mentorship, but I've also had the opportunity to experience coaching. So I didn't know what you think the difference is between mentorship and coaching, and like what are the different expectations of both, and when should you consider pursuing one over the other?
I don't know. I'm not entirely sure of the exact difference, but like in my opinion, I think coaching is more of like it's like a session. Like you go to a coaching session and it's like more scheduled and a little bit more structured. In my mind, it brings me to like if you were at work and you needed to be coached on something or coached through a task, and it's like a little bit more like step by step, I suppose. Um, or just like feedback directly about something. It's not necessarily like we're doing this, let's talk about it. And how would you go about this next time? So I guess it could be interchangeable depending, but like a lot of that I think is just based upon the relationship you have with that person.
I think I can throw a little bit more on this because I've been in my partner is a coach, so I've been in now a realtor who I feel like that's like almost a common story these days. So I have a good visibility into what exactly coaching is. I feel like a mentor is more an industry expert or sort of an expert in whatever you're seeking mentorship in. They've done it before. They're an old hat and they're passing on their wisdom. And a coach is more like something akin to a therapist, but instead of emotional, it's just like getting you going. Like imagine like a soccer coach. Like the soccer coach might be teaching you skills, but probably they're more just organizing you and like giving you the momentum that you need to go get stuff and make it happen. And they're probably not industry experts; they're just experts in getting you hype. That to me, I feel like is the
I
main
like that.
difference. Yeah.
Let's go
Awesome.
with
All
that
right.
answer instead.
Absolutely. All right, I'm gonna call Daisy up on stage. I where is Daisy? Uh, sorry, listeners. All right, there we go. Daisy, you want to come up and ask your question, and that'll be, I think, our last one for the day.
Oh, hi.
Hello.
I just wanted to ask, what advice do you have for people who are transitioning and might feel like defeated, or maybe they're just going through like a lot of rejections, or they're just not in the place that they want to be? What advice would you give to them?
So I will like give the like front note that like I think the industry is like a wild place right now. And so
Yeah.
uh it's I don't know, seems like it's gonna be that like that a little bit longer, or who knows? I'm not an economist, but let's see. If we go back to like sort of how I managed the rejection when I was laid off and looking for a job, like being able to find like if you feel stuck, like just think about what you're passionate about, and it doesn't have to be like your dream career, right? But you could take something in the interim that's, kind of more exploratory. Um, and I think like I guess it could be frowned upon if you like do something completely opposite, but like there's never any reason that you have to like focus on one job and be like, if I don't get that, that's like the end of the world. Um, because there's always going to be another chance, right? Like games aren't going away. And then just having something to work on that's like your own little passion project on the back end that you can kind of be like, okay, let me focus all of my like rage about this rejection into, and then maybe like get a little snack, like maybe you need a little treat. Um, but yeah, like have,
Like a
I love
literal
little treat,
snack?
a little treat, yeah, like a little, maybe you get a cookie or something, but like just, take a break from whatever is like plaguing your mind with the awfulness of this economy, and work on something of your own for a while, and find joy in the little things. But I don't know, I feel like being an adult is all about like having to deal with rejection constantly, and it's like life's like a little roller coaster, and you're going to come out on top of it at some point. And like I feel like if on the opposite side of that, I'm like, ew, stop talking, you're fine, you have a job, blah blah. But like I just like going out to look at all types of job descriptions too. So if you're feeling stuck in a spot where you're like, oh, another like we reviewed your resume and like we decided to not move forward like
We
six
didn't
months
have time
later.
to give you any feedback,
Yeah,
but
exactly. Um, to kind of just like look at other job descriptions and like think about like what's adjacent or lateral. You don't have to step like back in your career, although I definitely did that from like what I was doing before. But yeah, I think just like seeing what else is out there, like you don't have to focus so hard on just one thing, because there's a lot of stuff like in games and tech. Uh, there's like different names for stuff, which I think is wild. So
yep. We're still the Wild West in here. We're still figuring it all
mhm.
out in the game industry. I think that's all really good, like calming advice. I love. Just get a
Oh
snack.
yeah, networking is a good.
Ooh, yes,
Somebody put that in chat. I was like, oh yeah, call that out. We love networking.
100%. Yeah, keep networking always, all day. Um, but I think something that could be pulled out of that last part, and really this whole episode, is you're sort of like almost like, and I say this like with all the love, like almost lackadaisical approach. You were just kind of you're just going. I mean, you're working hard, but you're just like you go, oh, that looks interesting, and you applied for the role. Like it wasn't this sort of like, oh, I gotta work in games or everything is doomed. Um, it was a little bit more
Yeah.
easy. Yeah.
Yeah, and like obviously that's not going to be everyone's approach, but like
Hmm.
I feel like I learned a lot, and I hate like somebody after my other talk was like, stop talking about getting laid off. Like how much did that affect you? And like It did a lot. Like, I was the person I was, like, devastated. I was like, "Oh my god,
Yes.
how could this happen to me?" Like, but I realized after that there's so many other opportunities and chances out there, and, like, the people that you connect with are gonna be there to, like, back you up, and
Yeah.
so, like, life's just life. You gotta keep going. Like, it's gonna be
Yeah.
an adventure, and just, like, take it as it comes and get your little treat, and hopefully, like, something cool comes, but, like, ask for help. I don't know.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff. So, I'll give it
Oh.
back to you. I'm blathering again.
No, you're great. This has all been such good content. If you're blathering, I will stop people from blathering if it's not good, and this has been really good.
Oh, cool.
Yes, I will politely interrupt. I love that. I think I also got laid off, and it was also like devastating. I remember coming home on a train and like sitting there. Uh, I mean, basically blankly. Like I didn't know what to feel for a long time, and then I got mad, and then I got sad. It was a whole freaking roller coaster. Um, and yeah, but here I am at a company that like sorry, but it's like 10 times better. I'm so much happier here. And that's just kind of life. So yeah, I think take it easy. And I do think it's worth calling out what you said, which is perhaps look for other roles, perhaps even outside of games. And I think when and if you do that, don't let that feel like a failure because it's not. It's just another step in the journey, in the adventure. And you'll loop back eventually. To the best of your ability, make it something that's applicable to where you do want to be, but then also enjoy the ride and give it 110%, even if it isn't exactly where you want to be. All right, I think we're officially at the end. This has been a really awesome episode, Kelly. Thank you for being here. Before we go, as always, we like to give a homework assignment to practice what we talked about here today. Sounds like you have thoughts on that. So, what would you like to give the audience?
Yeah, so, I was thinking because, you know, how I said leadership is so casual. Um, so think about maybe in your past, it could be family, ex-manager, current manager, somebody you admire. Um, and think about somebody who, it was three people. Yeah, I put list three mentors that you maybe didn't think were mentors, but in hindsight, you actually learned a lot from them, and they're kind of those people who you're like, I could call and ask a question like years later. Um, write those down. How did they enter your life, and what did you learn from them?
I love that. That is a super on theme for exactly what you taught us here today. Like, there's so many people in your life that you may not realize were mentors. So, think of three people in your life that were mentors. Perhaps you didn't realize it, and then list what they did for you. Is that what you said?
Yeah, list what you learned from them and how they
Nice.
came into your life.
Awesome. That's perfect. So we've started doing this recently. Do this homework. This is a valuable exercise. We have started asking people ahead of time to make sure the homework is awesome. When you do the homework, post it for us on LinkedIn and/or our Discord, and you can feel free to tag the Indie Game Academy if you wish, and then use the hashtag LGLH homework. IGLH homework. Indie Game Lunch Hour homework. Yes. Thank you. I can see Kelly like, wait, isn't that wrong? IGLH homework. That way we will hold each other accountable to doing the practice and learning more from Kelly. All right, we're at the end of the episode. Kelly, that's freaking awesome homework. Is there any last things you want to say or any last things you would like to plug before we say goodbye?
Dang, I wasn't prepared for this, even though I watch Hot Ones all the time. And he's like, there, there, there.
There's a
uh,
camera. There's a camera. Just kidding. There's exactly one
I
camera.
know it's me. It's right here. Uh, I don't know. Just like keep on keeping on. The world is really hard, and just be nice to yourself and check on your friends.
Oh, I love that. Thank you, Kelly. Awesome. Well, that definitely concludes the episode. Kelly, thank you so much for being here. That was a
Oh,
really
yeah,
good
thanks for
episode.
having me.
Heck yeah! I'm so happy we finally got this chat. For those who ask questions, thank you for asking questions, for being brave and giving us your questions. Those who are listening, thanks for listening, and those who are here live, thank you for being here. If you enjoyed this episode, what we always request is that you send this episode along to one other person who might enjoy it too. And otherwise, we'll be back here Wednesday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time in our Discord. There are links to join down below. We're here every single week with a new podcast guest. And that's going to be it. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kelly.